Welcome to Gate Crash, a podcast dedicated to kicking open the door to your next favorite thing. Our mission, our creed, and our code is this: to make all things more approachable and accessible to everyone. We want you to find a universe that you'll fall in love with. I've talked about it on the show before. I have a really hard time reading prose because I have some brain stuff, but every so often I find an author that's work engages me in a way that connects with me, and I end up reading their things in just a sitting. One of those books was My Heart is a Chainsaw, that came out in 2021. Now, the sequel to the center book in the Indian Lake trilogy, Don't Fear the Reaper, is out. I am lucky enough to be joined by a modern master of horror and experimental fiction and so much more, Stephen Graham Jones. How are you?
Man, I'm great. Thanks for having me.
I'm so excited to have you. I love your work, clearly.
Thank you.
And I'm very excited to be able to talk about this one, horror, and all those sorts of things. But I don't know how much you know about me, and that I am actually a pretty hard-hitting journalist. So I hope you're ready for this first question.
Is it an ambush?
What's your favorite sandwich?
My favorite sandwich. It's the California Club at Jason's Deli. I don't know if y'all have Jason's Deli out there, but
No, what is that?
it's mostly in Texas. I found a couple in Colorado. I usually see them down south though. It's just like chicken soup and turkey sandwiches and muffalettas, which is evidently a type of sandwich. But the California Club is thinly sliced turkey and guacamole without any onions in it, and lettuce and bacon and on a croissant. And man, I could eat those all day. If I could, I could eat those forever and ever.
The croissant sounds incredible.
Yeah, it's really good, man.
So I assume you've been asked a million times about what your horror origins are. I'm actually way more interested to find out which horror scene has stuck with you the longest.
Yeah, I think it might be that peephole scene in Dario Argento's opera. Do you know that scene?
I've never seen it, but
yeah, opera. It's a good giallo. There's a character in this It's a big like fancy apartment building, I think. But the apartments are monstrous. They're like bigger than a house. It's a rich people place, and she is being pursued by terribleness. It's a horror movie, and somebody knocks on her door, and she looks for the people, and this guy holds up a badge, and he holds up a gun to show he's like proving he's a cop, and he does all these stages to prove I'm safe. I'm safe. You can open the door, and she looks one more time. That gun is on the peephole, and he fires. And Dario Argento, being the master of angles and visual tension and all that stuff, he makes it work for. It feels like it lasts for 10 minutes. It's probably 25 seconds, but it is glorious. I can watch that scene all day long.
The poster itself is the poster is beautiful, but looking at the pictures from the actual film, holy shit. I'll put this on the list because I need to see this. Now, My Heart is a Chainsaw felt like a love letter to the slasher genre, which we all know sequels are a huge part of. And now you're doing it with Don't Fear the Reaper. Were there any tropes you felt that were important to include in your story?
I kind of adhered to Randy's rules. It's got to have a higher body count, and it's got to be have better kill scenes. And also, he has a third rule that I think it's on the extra features or in the script or somewhere about don't always assume the killer is dead. But it's funny because I kind of played with that one a little bit. So I include it kind of sideways. But I think the one trick that I felt would be too obvious. The slasher audience knows how the slasher works, and so it's really hard to either stay one step ahead of them or keep them on the wrong foot so you can surprise them. Either way works for a surprise, but you've got to do it. But the slasher audience being so keyed into how the slasher works, it's really tricky. And so I felt like I couldn't do a surprise family member, like, oh, my twin brother is back, or whatever. You see that a lot.
What was the Texas Chainsaw one that it was like his cousin in one of the more recent ones? Like his cousin comes back.
Oh yeah,
that.
yeah.
So after the first one came out, how do you think the kind of like the slasher fans reacted to it? Like, was it better than you expected?
To My Heart is a Chainsaw?
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought we might still be talking about Texas Chainsaw. Which we could, of course. I was surprised, honestly surprised and honored and thrilled because I always feel like in whatever room I'm in, I'm the only one who has this true abiding love, eternal for the slasher, and will wax poetic on it from every angle for however long you got, you know. But I always thought I was the only one like that. But it turns out there's so many more people who identify with Jade and her compulsions and the way she hides in the genre and the way she finds completion in the genre. I was I was thrilled that there were so many more slasher people out there, so many more than I knew.
Yeah, and I'm very much one of those people. Like
Mm,
there was like that wave of like elevated horror where like horror could only
mm,
be one thing, and like people were talking
mm,
down about like slashers and things in the 80s. I'm like, but wait, are you not
mm,
seeing all the stuff that was there? Like there was like so much more to
mm.
these movies than you ever expected. But I
Oh
think
yeah.
personally the genre has not changed, but I was reading an interview with you
Mm,
where you called them justice fantasies, which I really
mm,
liked because I've never seen someone talk about it in that way.
mm.
What what do you think in the more recent outings with slashers? How do you think they have evolved as a narrative device?
Number one, I think is they have not completely shaken off all their bad traits, but they have shaken off some of the reasons they get called misogynistic in their early form, like in the Golden Age slashers, you
Mm-hmm.
know. And I'm also and happy that they now tend to, and I think this is due to Wes Craven largely. They veer away from all the exploitative nudity that you saw in so many of the slashers, which back in the cheapy days of the Golden Age, that was how they got a certain demographic of the target of the
Yeah.
audience to the theater. They promised you were going to get a scene like this. There's
Yeah.
going to be a skinny dipping scene or something,
Yeah.
and but I'm really glad that the slasher has. I'm not saying it's become more responsible, but it's doing a lot less damage than it used to, and I'm really thrilled about that. And also, another big difference is if you look at the final girls from the golden age, as compared to like the neo slashers, the post Scream boom,
Mhm.
that like from '96 up to about 2001, you see that the first wave of final girls were really they feel a lot more like survivor girls. They're just the lucky one of the crew who makes it through the night.
Yeah.
Whereas the next iteration, the next cycle of final girls tend to come to the story with issues, like Sydney and Scream. She's still trying to process her mother's murder, which is a big, huge thing in life. And then she just gets dropped into this horror adventure where processing through that horror adventure, surviving that horror adventure at the same time lets her process through her grief, and so she matures and grows and develops. I think in the Golden Age slashers, the final girl would kind of blossom into um, a different form when she was pushed into a corner. She would find that she has the heart of a warrior, or she
Mhm.
values her own life, or whatever it is, which is great and wonderful. And I love that dynamic. In the later slashers, you have that, but you also have them dealing with real life issues that we all deal with. And I think that has made the slasher more accessible to a larger swath of the population of the marketplace
That is
because we all have those issues.
Yeah, that is it feels like the golden age, a lot of the way that it was written, it was more reactive for like
Yeah.
they were put into a situation and they have to do this, but like you see
Mhm.
I think you're right with Wes who kind of
Mhm.
pushed it to the next level, and you can see it a little bit in Nancy and Nightmare, like
Yeah.
she goes right after that fucker, like it's
Yeah. And she what's wonderful about Nancy is she doesn't out muscle Freddy, she outthinks Freddy,
yeah.
And I always feel like when the final girl, when it comes down to who can swing a machete the hardest, who can swing a chainsaw the hardest, that becomes a battle of muscles, which is to say the threat of the slasher has forced the final girl to take on that slasher's traits in order to win the day. But the truly quality final girls, I think, are like Nancy. They think their way out.
Yeah.
They use their brains, their intelligence.
Now with your character Jade,
Mm,
this is
mm,
the so something that really enthralled me in the first one is that
mm,
she doesn't think she's kind of worthy of being a final girl in a way.
mm,
Like she
mm,
talks about how it's not what she's meant for. She's like the side character. She's not the one who saves
mm,
the day. And I think it's such an interesting introspective thing. Now with Don't Fear the Reaper, this is the center of the trilogy. This is the Empire Strikes Back.
mm,
How
mm.
much self growth and introspection do you want to put her through in the center rather than at the end.
No, that's exactly the question I had to ask myself when I was look. I'm getting a virtual shadow. That's kind of scary. um, this is just audio, so y'all can't see it, but it's kind of scary. I got a shadow behind me.
Yeah,
um,
but yeah,
um,
I had Pearl behind, like she used to be a lot lower, and I would have my
ah,
background blurred in my professional life. But whenever I would move my head ever so slightly, you just got a face full of Mia Goth behind me.
that's
Yeah,
nice.
it's very interesting.
Pearl, Pearl, man, she's pretty twisted. But no, the trick is when and I didn't realize this until I was doing it, until I was writing a trilogy. I've never written a trilogy before, but when you have a series character, that series character needs to have their arc be across all three books. You can't have them arc in the first book and then be flat for the next two books. You've got to. It's not just about putting more obstacles in front of them, and it's not about delaying their development. It's just about building that arc so that it goes from page one of book one to page 412 of book three. And so I had to do that with Jade. And you're totally right to bring up The Empire Strikes Back. The two texts that I studied to understand the tone of the middle book in a trilogy was The Empire Strikes Back. I say books. The two stories I
Yeah,
studied were The Empire Strikes Back, and The Two Towers, because I think those are both really quality
yeah.
second book, middle books in a trilogy. And really, to tell you the truth, I should have studied Catherine Arden's middle book in her Winter Night trilogy, that fantasy trilogy. That's an
Mm.
amazing trilogy. Um, anyways, yes, I didn't want her to complete her development. I wanted to show her going a little bit higher and maybe get into the crescendo, such the third book she can start to become what she's going to be. You know.
It's interesting. And it's how did it like? Because all right, so I know that it took I think around 8 years to finish the first one.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
How did it feel easier getting Reaper out than the first one?
Yeah, it totally did. Well, I did write the first version of My Heart is a Chainsaw back in 2013, but the trick is, I think it took 8 years because I don't want to be a cheater and lie. But
Mhm.
I put it on a shelf and didn't look at it again until 2018, the end of 2018. So I guess, I mean, it might have been cooking in the back of my head for the whole
Yeah,
time. It was called different titles and everything. But you're right. My Heart is a Chainsaw took a while. It took probably the longest it's ever taken me to write a novel. I've done novels in 72 hours, and this one, yeah, you're right, 8 years. And My Heart is a Chainsaw, I did, no, I'm sorry, Don't Fear the Reaper took 10 weeks. And it was supposed to take 8 weeks, but I had to do some script work for 2 weeks, which took me out of the novel. So it became 10 weeks. And the reason it took 10 weeks, it wasn't a deadline or anything. It was that once I plopped back down into that world of Proof Rock, Indian Lake, Terra Nova, Camp Blood, Glen Dam, all that stuff, I realized that the world is already built. These characters are already who they are, the ones who survived the first book. And I could just hit the ground running. And well, what that meant was that this slasher, this Don't Fear the Reaper, could be built much more like the slashers we see at the Cineplex. It could be dropping a body every 12 minutes.
the so I before we get to your slasher because holy shit, um, I was curious with with writing this trilogy. I know your writing process can be pretty hardcore. What was it like writing this one? And you said 10 weeks. Like how what were you do you sit at the desk? How do you like tackle that?
I'm not one of those 6 hour writing session people. I can write for 6 hours, but I only write good for the first hour and a half. Everything after that is just stuff that I have to go back and delete. And so I've learned to only write for about 86 or 90 minutes at a time, which is what I did with this one. And I was also teaching two classes at the time. No, I was teaching three classes at the time, I think. And as I say, I had Hollywood work to be doing, and I think I was pitching comic books as well. I had a lot going
Damn.
on, but what I've found is the more obligations, duties, responsibilities, the more projects I have cooking, the more I get done. Like if you give me 5 weeks off and you tell me to do something, I'll just watch Rockford Files and listen to Bob Seger and not get nothing done. you know?
And you did
Yeah.
mention comics and teaching. I'm really
Yeah.
curious with teaching. It's something where you have to stand in front of a group and get your ideas across to a group of people.
Mm-hmm.
Do you ever think that helps you as a writer, being able to put your things out clearer?
It keeps me honest anyways. When I'm teaching a writing class, I hear myself kind of laying down a law, and there's not really laws in writing, but there are techniques that tend to work more than other things, and there's also pitfalls to avoid. And so I'll be up at the front of the class saying, don't do this, do that. And then 2 hours later, I'm at my keyboard writing, and I hear myself saying that, and I'm like, "Oh crap, I got to be good too," you know.
Yeah.
And it keeps me honest. It keeps me honest, man.
So with you've done some comic work. I know you've written for Marvel. You've got your
Mhm,
book. Is it
mhm.
at Image? Correct me if I'm wrong.
IDW,
IDW. That's it.
IDW. Yeah.
With that being a more visual medium, so like everything you're
Mhm,
doing, like the slasher, you can have that visual in your head. Does it feel?
mhm.
How does it feel? Just putting out words versus you're putting out words and then you're having an artist interpret them.
That the interpretation is the key difference. You're right. Like a comic book, no matter how it's structured contractually or workflow wise, it's still a collaboration. Um, and the trick is you can never like use the artist as a third arm you have that happens to have the artistic ability. You've got to give them the script and let them express it how they see it best expressed. You can give notes and say, well, actually that was a 72 El Camino, not a El
Yeah.
Ranchero or whatever. But there's little stuff like that that might matter for the story. But what's wonderful about that is it opens up room for them to make your words or your script so much better, and that happens over and over in Earth Divers with Davide, the artist I'm working with
Mhm.
for it. He makes it so much better. He has a visual instinct that I'll never have. So I started out kind of mapping out the layouts a little bit, but I really quickly stopped that. I realized I just have to give him the story beats, and he can figure out what goes where.
With comics being you get to see all this, I was always curious, how much input do you get on the cover and the actual binding of your book? How much input do you get on that?
Very, I could probably have more input if I wanted, but I have elected to focus mostly on the
Mhm.
interior stories. I've been really fortunate. IDW has pulled amazing artists who do
Yeah.
wonderful,
Oh
wonderful
yeah.
covers and alternate covers. But I did have, I did get to see the first issue Raphael Albuquerque cover, that kind of iconic cover of the three ships and the face that's turned into a skull and all that, which was so beautiful and amazing. Actually, I wrote Raphael after he turned that in, and I said, let's just stop here at issue 1 because it's not getting any better than this. but but it's not that I don't have time to have cover input. It's that these artists, they read the issue. I think they read the
Mhm.
script actually, and they generate the cover based kind of off of that. And they, I'm pretty sure that they submit finished art, and giving notes on finished art is really just hurling insults at people or
Yeah.
compliments.
Yeah.
And I only want to hurl compliments. And luckily, I'm working with people whom I only would hurl compliments at.
Yeah, that's always a positive. Now,
Mhm.
with your prose work, do you get input on those covers?
I do, yes, for sure. We went through a few different, wildly different variations from Hires a Chainsaw, but luckily, Dump for the Reaper, the first one that came in, was golden, and it's kind of like the Hires a Chainsaw cover dictated what Reaper was going to be, and also kind of dictated what the third one was going to be because they all have to match.
Yeah, I love the white, red, and I'm excited to see the third color because I
Hmm,
love
hmm.
I love the idea of these three being together on the shelf.
Yeah. Oh, I know it's going to be so cool.
So before we get back to the book, I do have one more question. I
Mm,
actually have
mm,
never really gotten to get in depth with a prose author before, and I've
mm.
always wondered this question. How do you decide when to end your chapter and when to start a new one? What for you makes it an efficient like punch?
Yeah, there's a lot of different reasons to break a chapter or break a section. One is a time jump, one is a geography jump, one is a character jump, going from this character to that character. Another one is sometimes you write a line that is so accidentally perfect that you want to emphasize it by white space under it. So you break it there. And other times you realize, oh man, this is 35 pages and all the other chapters are 17 pages. This is too long. I gotta do a new chapter. you know? And
Sometimes
and
that
the real yeah, and the real reason, to tell you the truth, is just stories kind of come at you in units. Like you say this is the part where they run through the high school, and once they push open the doors, you're into a different unit of the story, and so you jump chapters.
interesting. It's just been
What
something
what blows
that's
me away, yeah, what blows me away though, is that some people, some writers I talk to a lot, they write just linearly. They write things out of order and then they put it together. And I just cannot imagine doing that. That just melts my brain.
That's like so they'll write like chapter 3 and then like 18.
Hmm. Hmm.
That's wild. Because like I guess it's
That
cool
is
because
wild.
you get to be like, how do I get from here to here? But I would
Yeah.
I'd lose my mind. I'd there would never see
Oh
me.
man. Yeah.
Uh
Oh no, me neither. I don't see how they can even think. You know.
yeah, it's I'm like I want to go straight through. I'm like a bull.
Yeah. Me too. Me too, man. Yeah.
So with Don't Fear the Reaper, we're
Mhm.
following Jade's return to Proof Rock after the events of the first book
Mhm.
and the aftermath that came with it. I'm trying not to get too much into
Mhm.
spoilers because I really
Yeah.
want people to read these because they're
Mhm.
wonderful. Now, for you, what fears do you think a story about a homecoming can explore?
Um, Number one, for Jade anyway, trauma is an important thing. How to process that, how to live with it, how to move, not move past, but not in a way that erases your past. That's a trick. But I think the big question is, will this home have me? I think that's what Jade is dealing with, is where do I fit? And everybody everybody's conception of me is locked in to when I was 17 years old, and we're all idiots when we're 17 years old. And
Yes.
I would hate to have to talk to myself. I would hate to have to talk to my 17-year-old self because he had ideas that I don't condone anymore. you know.
Yeah.
And but Jade has been gone for 4 years, and so the last time people saw her, she was 17, and they still expect her to be that same girl, and she's not. And the question is, will her place, her home, let her change? Will it let her be? Will it let her grow and develop any? And that's a hard thing to come up against.
It's you I it's you see it a lot in it,
Mm-hmm.
the book, and it's very interesting because I love Jade in the first one. I wanted everything to be okay
Mm-hmm.
for her, but like logically, that's not gonna happen.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
no. As I mean, writers, our first job is to push our characters through the meat grinder.
Yeah. Yeah. To really hurt them
Mhm.
and to hurt your readers. So it's
Mhm.
fine.
Mhm.
Um
Mhm.
Now Proof Rock isn't a real place, right?
No,
So
no.
when you develop something like this, are you drawing out a map? What is your process for developing your space?
The process in my heart as a chainsaw was no plan at all. Like I thought, I need a
Love
post
it.
office, I need a sheriff's office, I need a high school, I need a lake, and so I said all those things. And then when I got to Don't Fear the Reaper and I was trying to navigate somebody running from this place to that place, I was like, I don't know where anything is. And so I had to go back and instead of reading Chainsaw audiobook, to listen to Carrie Gee's amazing performance.
Mm-hmm.
And I took copious notes of, oh, okay, it took her this long to get from here to here. That must mean it's a quarter mile away. And so I had to figure out all that stuff after the fact. And
That
and so Proofrock doesn't end up laid out as if it was planned because it wasn't planned. It just kind of plopped down in place, and I had to work around it.
that's very interesting. It's so funny to hear that you have to go back and listen to your book. Be like, oh shit, where is this? Uh, I mean, with that, what was the inspiration for the town? Because like I grew up in a very small town, on the Eastern Shore, but like, what was the inspiration for the things that went into this town, like the lake or the name is slipping from me, the rich mansions across the lake?
Terra Nova,
That's it,
yeah,
Terra
Terra
Nova.
Nova. I wonder if it wasn't. I used to, as a kid, I spent a summer with some grandparents on a lake in like Central Texas, Marble
Mhm.
Falls. It's kind of I don't know if it's a rich community, but it felt rich to me anyway. It's coming from West Texas, and I kind of got enchanted with the lake from that, and I also got enchanted with lakes from reading this story by Tony Early called "The Prophet from Jupiter," and it really like mythologizes a lake's history, and I feel like I used a lot of that tone to make Indian Lake feel real, and um, also I'm terrified of lakes. I think that was important. I think horror writers have to write what they're scared of.
Yeah.
Like when we were in high school, there was a lake about an hour and a half from us, Robert E. Lee Lake, and we would go there for the weekend to do whatever in the water. But so it'd be like me and four friends, and they would all have to like make a basket of their arms and carry me out deep enough so my feet wouldn't touch the slimy green rocks because I freak out if my feet touch slimy green rocks. and so,
Interesting.
and anytime I'm in the water, if I'm in the water and like a floating branch or piece of vegetation touches my feet, then it's a panic attack. I cannot handle it. I mean, growing up in West Texas, we don't have water. There's no water to be in. It's dry as can be. And so I didn't grow up around water. And so water to me is forever terrifying and mysterious. And I think that's really where Indian Lake comes from.
I grew up on an island, so I'm the exact opposite.
Mm.
Like the Chesapeake Bay was my backyard, like literally in my backyard. So it's very interesting
Wow.
to hear what you're afraid of, rather than the fathoms below. You're afraid of the rocks and whatever's running past your legs, because like
Yeah, yeah.
I was always afraid of how deep that fucking thing is. Like I don't know what's down there. That's terrifying.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
but Indian
I
Lake,
do better in the I do better in the ocean than I do in lakes, actually.
oh, there's no slimy green rocks typically in the ocean, depending on
Yeah,
where you are.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, how how much of the rest of the story is going to revolve around Indian Lake? Because it seems like the heart of
Mhm.
everything.
It is. You're completely right about that. And the third book, Indian Lake, is that's probably the installment of this trilogy where the lake is the most important, I suspect. Yeah.
Interesting.
Mhm.
Have you started on the third? I don't. You don't have to say
I
if you.
finished. I'm finished it.
Oh
No,
shit!
I'm finished. I finished with it. I finished August 15th, and it's been in notes ever since. I'm just waiting to get some notes back right now, and but it's in place. And the editor says the ending works, and it's not locked in quite. It's
Mm-hmm.
not ready to go to advanced reading. It's not quite ready to go to advanced reading copies. We don't have the cover yet, but we will have all that very, very soon here.
Wow, I'm. That's wild. 8 years to this is very interesting.
Yeah.
Even if it just sat
Well,
and
I think this.
collected.
Yeah, I think this third one. It might have taken me. Let me think. I think it took like between 2 and 3 months to write. It took longer than I thought it was going to take because it ended up being a bigger book than I thought it was going to be.
I'm pumped. So
Because
good.
whereas Don't Fear the Reaper, is like fast paced compared to My Heart Is a Chainsaw. This third book turns it up even more.
Great. Great. I did
Mhm,
listen. I just
mhm,
please just
mhm.
hope Jade happy ending. She has a great life. Everyone. It's a turns into a, what do you call them, like a young adult novel where she's just happy. The whole third book is just her getting to have a full fulfilled life of whatever she wants to do, and not ripping my still beating heart from my chest. But it's fine. Um this one, you got to make your slasher. Like he's a
Mhm,
bona fide killer. Dark Millie
mhm,
South. I should have asked Mill or
mhm.
Millie?
Dark Mill
Mill. So
South.
Dark
Yeah,
Mill South,
yeah.
who is, when he is being described, his crimes and things like that, it is
Mhm,
so visceral that like you can see this just
mhm,
bad dude in front of you. What were some
mhm.
of the elements you wanted to include in your idea of a slasher from the pantheon of the slasher saints, I guess?
Yeah, I like the Kane Hodder Jason Voorheeses, because they're big and they have
Yes.
that heaving chest. They have that heaving chest and that head cock.
Mm-hmm.
And so I knew I wanted to do some version of an oversized slasher. I like the oversized slashers.
Same.
Like I guess that's what you get in Just Before Dawn too. Those
Yeah.
big dudes. And even Rob Zombie's Michael Myers, he's a big old
He's
dude.
big. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And I always like that. Like in a lot of slashers, like I love Scream 5, don't get me wrong, but Scream 5 is that I forget their names, but that guy and that girl are the ones under the mask in
Jack
the
Quaid,
robe.
whatever his name in the movie
Yeah,
was. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And oh wait, yeah. No, I'm sorry. I'm talking about Scream 4, man. No, Scream 4. No, I'm
Scream
talking about
4
Scream
is
5. Yeah.
Emma Roberts, wasn't it?
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, that's right. So I am talking about Scream 5. And and but when that girl, I forget her name, when she was under the robe, and like I think she might be the one who kills Dewey, if I remember correctly.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and Dewey outsizes her,
Yeah.
and I'm like, I get it if you have the scariness of the robe and the mask and a knife, then you can probably get at somebody. But she's like lifting him up onto up his
Yeah.
feet a little bit. And I'm like, come on, that girl weighs like 115 pounds.
I wonder what she deadlifts, because like it's wild.
Yeah, so
I
I know.
love a
Yeah,
bulk. I'm a bulk
yeah,
guy. Because like I'm 6'2". Like I'm not
yeah,
gonna be afraid
yeah.
of, I could
I know.
Ghostface, I'm knocking him out. Like it's not, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Jason or Leatherface, I'm done. Game over,
Man,
man.
oh, that's for sure. I
They're
always
hunky.
like what's that? Yeah, that Lombardo Bava movie. What's it called? Is it Under the Blade? It's that giallo slasher kind of he did. I want to say it's 82 or 84. Um, there's a the final girl is a guy. He's at this he's at this house to record music or something.
Mhm.
Turns out his slasher is a woman, and so when they face off in the living room, he's like much taller than her, and she comes at him, and he just like knocks her down and contains her, you know. And I knew I didn't want that. I wanted
Yeah.
a slasher that you cannot knock down. Even if you knock him down with whatever, he's getting back up because he has that much rage.
He's got those kind of
Uh,
so for the beginning of Jason, it didn't have the supernatural stuff other than how did this
uh,
kid come back? That's kind
yeah.
of how South feels. Like he feels supernatural
Uh,
in a way that like you can't kill him.
uh, yeah. No, I think he is kind of supernatural. Yeah.
Mhm. So with his weapon, how did you come
Uh,
to terms with that? Like, what did you go
uh,
through? Because I know you're a blade guy.
yeah.
What did
Yeah, I
what
am.
were the
Yeah.
iterations in your head of like what it could have been and what you
That's a
ended
really
up
good
on?
question. Yeah, initially there's a point in the novel where he breaks apart a pair of hedge clippers and uses one side of those hedge clippers as a kind of machete. And I thought, well, that's going to be it. He's going to do that. But then I looked at some hedge clippers and I realized that these might be good for one time, but they are a little bit awkwardly shaped to actually do a lot of bad, you know. And and
Yeah.
but I knew I couldn't use like knife fingers. I couldn't use a machete. Couldn't use a chainsaw. It's all signature weapons of other people, and he's not going to be that kind of copycat. So he had to have his own thing. And so I went back to one of the many many roots of the slasher, the Lover's Lane hook hand maniac who was out killing people. And I thought, let's go back to basics, you know. And the hard part about that though for me was I kept writing scenes where Dark Mel South would be doing this with his right hand and doing something else with his left hand, and I'd go back and realize he's got a hook hand. He can't do that, so I have to fix it.
You had to like work around him. Uh, that is wild. Yeah, I really I'm so excited to always see new slashers coming up and like I was like, oh, I mean, listen, I trust you, but like I was like, oh, I wonder what his slasher is going to be, and I was like, oh fuck, he's terrifying. So nice.
Yeah, and I also had to be sure to give him a story for how he got that hook hand, and that was
Yeah,
really fun to do too.
yeah.
Yeah.
His like list of crimes was like it's a very dark thing to say, but it's impressive. Like, wow, you really got away with
Yeah.
some shit, didn't you? Like, you're especially in the modern
Yeah.
age. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
I feel like slashing is a
Yeah.
little bit. Cell phones have made it harder because, like,
They have. Yeah.
you're going on live,
Yeah.
you're going on Facebook Live. It's into
You're
that.
you're totally right. You're totally right. Interstates made it easier, but phones dialed it back.
Yeah.
It kind of reset things. But the trick is, in America, Indians were kind of invisible, and I think that's what allows Dark Middle South to keep operating. Is that America dismisses us and sees through us, and
Mhm.
so he can live among us. I feel like.
Was that element more important in this one than the first one? Because I know the first one you weren't.
Mm,
It wasn't.
mm.
It was important to Jade,
Yeah,
but it
yeah,
wasn't like
yeah,
an essential element of your storytelling.
yeah. Well, in my heart is a chainsaw, I was coming right off the back end of the Only Good Indians.
Yeah.
And the Only Good Indians dealt with a lot of different native issues, and and I realized that if I dealt with those same issues from different angles and different builds, then I was going to become the guy who does that, and I don't want to
Yeah.
be the guy who does that. I want to be the guy who tells fun slasher stories.
Yeah.
And if something else happens along the way that's good, that's great. But that's not my first goal. My
Yeah.
first goal is to chop some heads and open some stomachs.
Uh, I, I love it. But like, you have to be like, listen, I love it. And during all my research, this I actually learned that you did a clown story, and I am.
Yeah.
But the clown is my favorite, other than slashers, is my
Hmm.
favorite horror trope because it takes something
Hmm.
so innocent and best. I got to actually my first non like comics piece for Fangoria. I wrote about the
Hmm.
use of the clown in horror. So I was very excited to finally get to read that from you. But also in my
Yeah.
research, I've come upon a slasher who shows up in a lot of things you talk about, and um, Camp Blood,
Hmm.
Jason Voorhees.
Hmm.
Listen, I would kill to see you work on the show.
Hmm.
Just excited that we're getting the boy back.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
for the end of this interview, I want to ask you,
Hmm.
what is your favorite Friday the 13th kill?
Oh, that's a good question. Um, The easy one to go to is the handstand kill, where he
Yeah.
carves that guy down the middle while he's doing
Yeah.
a handstand. I love that. I really love the bed folding in the remake, the 2009 remake. That is brutal. When
Is
he
that
that
Oh yeah, he does it in
yeah.
Freddy vs. Jason too, doesn't he?
Oh,
Uh
that's what I'm talking about. I'm
yeah,
sorry. Yeah, it's Freddy
that's
versus
okay.
Jason when he goes into that house. Yeah, yeah,
Freddy vs.
yeah.
Jason
But that
rules. It's just
yeah, it does. It's so good. I agree. It doesn't totally make sense like
no,
geographically and all, but
not at
who
all.
cares,
Where
Yeah.
I don't know where Elm Street is, but Jason's Jersey. So like I don't know how he walked. Could you imagine like because
Yeah.
that dude, I think it was Kane Hodder at that time too, wasn't it? Imagine that dude just walking down the
Yeah.
side of the highway. I mean,
Oh,
in
and but
Jersey, he's probably fine.
yeah,
After that,
yeah,
like someone's
yeah,
gonna say
for sure.
something.
Well, I mean, the Crystal Lake is evidently a body of water that opens up to Manhattan, so it can do anything, you know?
Yeah, that one's wild because it's North Jersey, which is close, but not close enough to just
Yeah.
go to New York City. Um, what is your
Oh, I know
favorite? Go
my
ahead.
favorite Jason kill. I think it is this in six? I think it might be in six, where there's that drunk grave keeper guy, the cemetery custodian and caretaker, and he's walking through the cemetery at night drinking, and he takes a drink and it's empty, he shakes it, there's nothing there, and so he throws it behind him, and he becomes a litter bug, and he doesn't hear that bottle hit the ground, and he's like, "What's up?" And he looks around, and Jason kills him with that bottle. I love that instant karma, and that
I didn't even
and
think
and
about.
that and and that guy was not on Jason's list. He's not a camp counselor. He's done nothing
No,
to Jason's mother, and he's just like in crime. He's an opportunity to perform some justice that
yeah.
Jason happened to stumble upon. And I
J-
like that a whole lot, man.
Jason teaches abstinence better than anyone else by force. That's his thing. My favorite is probably 3 with the
Mm-hmm.
I am yeah, I didn't get to be around when 3D was cool for horror movies,
Mm-hmm.
and now it's
Mm-hmm.
just like James Cameron does whatever he wants. I wish I
Yeah,
was around because Jason 3D when he shoots the what is it? It's a
the spear
spear
gun,
gun. That's
the
my
spear gun.
favorite.
Yeah,
It is so goofy that Jason Voorhees is
yeah, it
like
is.
boom,
Yeah,
and I'm
I
like,
know, I
okay,
know.
Jason, sure, whatever you want to do, buddy.
Yeah, why not? And is that also the one where he hits somebody in the back of the head with a pickaxe and their eye comes
Yep.
out to this
Yeah.
camera?
Yeah.
Yeah,
What a picture. So, all right,
that's so
what
beautiful.
I do have a
Yeah,
last one for you. For
yeah.
you, what is Jason's motivation? Like, why do you think he does it?
I think he's got slasher goggles on, and it's two things. He's got slasher goggles on,
Flash your goggles.
um, which is to say, camp counselors kind of both
Mm-hmm.
caused my death through neglect, and they killed my mother. So I've got a vendetta against camp counselors. And to him, anyone who comes to the lake is a camp counselor. Pretty much, they don't
Yeah.
have to wear a yellow shirt. They're a camp counselor. They don't have to be Barry and Claudette from 1958.
Yeah.
Um, but also, I think he's kind of territorial. I think he has been at Crystal Lake and its surrounding,
Mm-hmm.
woods for long enough that he's like, "This is my place, y'all." And anybody who comes in, I don't. It's like he's Grendel in Beowulf.
Yeah.
He's like, "I don't like the noise y'all are making over there, and I'm going to make you be quiet." And
I'm
so he
gonna
goes
handle
in
it.
and
Yeah.
he rips some arms off.
Yeah.
But I think first and foremost, if it's only a single reason, it's probably um these people beheaded my mother, and
Yeah.
I'm not very fond of that.
Yeah. And he can't go to therapy, so he can never work through that.
No,
Yeah.
he's working through it the only way he has with the tools he's got.
Yeah, it's always it's his therapy. Technically, like
Yeah, yeah,
he's a good guy.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
but honestly, thank you so much for being here.
Oh
By
man,
the
yeah.
by the time this drops, Don't Fear the Reaper will be out. Um, are there other projects people should be picking up from you right now?
Yeah, I mean, I've got a long backlist of books upcoming, I guess. It's been announced. I Was a Teenage Slasher will be hitting the shelves at some point. I'm not sure the date or anything, but it's a slasher set in small town West Texas.
Oh, I is this?
Yeah.
I feel like I missed this announcement. Who?
Yeah, so I got the same people who did Good Indians and My Heart is a Chainsaw, Don't Fear the Reaper. They're doing I Was a Teenage Slasher.
Nice,
Yeah.
because I already know him. So thank you so much for being here.
Mhm.
I really hope people get to pick this book up and check them out. And where can people find you? Where can people find your work? That's a good one.
You know, just search my name up anyway. Search my name up. You'll go to my site, StephenGrahamJones.com or DemonTheory.net. I think there's a few different like aliases that resolve there. Or just find me on Twitter. I know Twitter is kind of like a cesspool at the moment, and it may
Yeah.
be forevermore. But that's the only social media I'm on. I just can't maintain more than one social media.
Yeah, that's fine. That's probably better that way. You can find us at gatecrashers.fan. You can find us for reviews, analysis, all that good stuff there. And you can chat with us next week.